Okay, I'm just going to backtrack a bit so Faith can hear. So we're learning how to solve a proportion, and we're learning how to tell if it's a proportion by whether or not the cross products are equal, which is another way of deciding whether we have equivalent ratios or not. So it just tacks on to the lesson we just did. It's an easier way to check, okay, a really quick way to check. A proportion is a statement that two ratios are equal. It can be written in colon form or fraction form, but for cross products, you want to use it in fraction form, okay? So cross products are a really quick way to check and see if you have equivalent ratios. So there's a little picture here. Here's my proportion, 3/6 equals 2/4. And the way you check it is, on your calculator, you multiply the cross product. So the denominator of the first one by the numerator of the second one, 6 times 2. That gives you 12. And you also multiply the top of the first one by the bottom of the second one, and that also gives you 12. If you get 12 in both spots, then you know that it's a proportion, or you know that the ratios are equivalent. Okay? So if you went back to the one we just did and it said, say whether they're equivalent ratios or not, you can set them up as fractions. Cross products, if the cross products are equal, they're equivalent ratios. Okay? It's a really fast way to tell. Oops. So it's going to really help us when we go to solving proportions. Okay, so here's our first question. Use cross products to determine if these ratios are equal. So you're going to take your first one and write it as a fraction, 4/6. And we'll assume they're equal for now. We may have to put a line through the equal sign, but let's start off by assuming they're equal. 6/9. And then we're going to do the cross products. So I'm going to use highlighter. And I'm going to test 4 times 9. So I'm going to write it out. You guys don't have to. You can just do it on your calculator. But I'm doing 4 times 9, and that gives me 36. And then I'm going to try the other cross. 6 times 6 also gives me 36. So they are equivalent ratios. Okay, the equal sign stands. I don't have to put a cross through it. Super quick way to check and see if you've got equivalent ratios. Okay? So try the same thing here. We're going to check if 2 to 3 and 18 to 30 are equivalent. So we start off by assuming that they are. So we're going to put the equal sign in. And then we're going to do cross products. So we're going to do 2 times 30. And you can do it right on your calculator. I'm just writing it out. So when someone looks back on this video, they see what I did. And I got 60. And then I do 30 times 18. And I know I don't get 60. 30 times 18 is 540. So I know that they're not equivalent ratios, so I just put a cross through that equal sign. They're not equal. Yeah?
You wrote it down wrong. It's 2/3, and then...
Thanks, Molly. So that changes this to 3 times 18, which is 54. Thank you, Molly. Didn't notice that. So still not equal, but a lot closer. Okay. So 3 times 18, still do the cross product. And quick way to tell whether they're equivalent or not. We don't have to figure out the multiplier anymore. We can just do the cross product. Okay. All right, so then the next question, true or false? So I'm just going to give you some time. All right, so I see lots of people doing the cross. So they're thinking to themselves, 4 times 15 is 60. 5 times 12 is 60. So that one stays true. It's true, right? Equal. Same thing here. So 3 times 7, 21. 5 times 5, 25. So not true. Or false, I guess. But all you need to do is put the line through the equal sign, and that's fine. That's telling me that they're not equal. Okay, they're not equivalent ratios. When you get down to C, you should rewrite it first in a fraction. So 18 to 24 means the 18 is on top, and the 24 is on the bottom. And same thing here, the first number is on the top, and the second number is on the bottom. So the order really matters. The only way you can mess that up is if you mix up the order, okay? Then you do your cross products. So you're gonna do 18 times 100 and 24 times 75, okay? So you get your calculator out, 18 times 100 is 1800. 24 times 75 is also 1800. So the equal sign stands, it's true. Okay? Next one. I see people already writing it in a fraction. This is very good news. Excellent. So we're testing, is 7 over 9 equal to 49 over 81? So we test our cross products. 7 times 81 is 567. And 9 times 49 is 441. So those are not equivalent fractions. Okay, not equivalent ratios. So we learned a quick way to tell whether we had equivalent ratios or we did not have equivalent ratios. Okay? All right. Chris has 80 liters of gasoline. Let's run out of highlight, I think I'll just underline. 80 liters of gasoline and 20 liters of oil that she wants to pour into the fuel tank of her boat. It's not going to work. We're doing so well. 3 in a row. Tomorrow will be better. I know Friday or Thursday will be really good. All right, so Chris has 80 liters of gasoline and 20 liters of oil that she wants to pour into the fuel tank of her boat. So we're going to make a fraction out of it, 80 over 20, and let's just remember that this means gas, the top number, and oil is the bottom because order matters. So I always try to make a little either words or units, something that lets me know that the top represents gas and the bottom represents oil. Okay. If the motorboat takes a gas to oil, so again, this is gas and this is oil, mix of 20 to 5, does she have the correct amount? So in other words, are these equivalent ratios? So is this true or is it not true? Okay? So we know how to do that using cross products now. We can test whether these are equal by using cross products. So we can try 80 times 5, and that gives me 400. And 20 times 20, that gives me 400 as well. So that means this is true. So then let's answer the question, does she have the correct amount of gas and oil? Therefore, she has the correct amount. Of gas and oil. So just from this morning, we could have had the same question this morning. And we would have said, what do you have to do to 20 to get 80? Times by 4. Is 5 times 4 20? Yes. So that's what we would have done this morning, which is fine. It's a great way to do it, but this is really quick. As long as you make sure you've got gas on top and oil on the bottom, then you can just do the cross product, and it will tell you whether it's true or not. Okay? So all it is a quicker way to do what we were doing this morning. Okay? All right. So recall a proportion is an equation that says we've got equivalent ratios. So one side's an equivalent ratio and the other side's equivalent ratio. We can use proportions to determine unknown values and solve many problems. So right now we're just going to focus on how to solve a proportion. Tomorrow we'll focus on how to use them to solve all the problems. And the next day after that. Okay? So this is kind of like the last major topic before the midterm. It's just going to apply to a whole bunch of different things. Okay? So we're going to solve each proportion. It says by instruction, but we're going to use cross products. So draw your cross product. All right. Find your variable. Here's my variable. Does everyone see its n? I'm always going to start with that cross, the cross that has my variable in it. So 80 times n. 80 times n is 80n. Okay? Put it below. I saw some people put it beside, put it below. We're working down the page. And because this is a proportion, this equal statement is true. We're not checking. We know it's true. So 80n does equal 100 times 8, which is 800. So once we've done the cross products, we get this really easy equation from last 2 weeks ago to solve. 80n equals 800. How do I get n by itself? Yep. You divide it by 80. So you divide it by the number in front of n. So that means n should be 800 divided by 80, which is 10. So that means that that number there should be a 10. 8 over 10 is the same as 80 over 100, but this is your answer. So you put your answer in a box, n equals 10. And if you weren't sure, you could try here, is 10 times 80 the same as 8 times 100? It is. Okay? All right, so we're going to do the same thing here, but we have to first rewrite it so it's as a fraction. So 45 over x equals 9 over 10. So the first numbers have to be on the top. I'll use underlining here. The first numbers both have to be on top. And the second numbers both have to be on the bottom. That's the only way you can mess this up, okay? Is if you switch one of them by accident. And then we're going to do cross product. I usually do this way. Find where your x is, or your variable, and you're going to start with that product. X times 9. X times 9 is 9x, and it's going to equal 45 times 10. 450. So once you've done the cross products, you've made this really easy one-step equation where all you have to do is divide both sides by the number in front of your variable. So we get x is equal to 50, which means 50 would go in that blank. You don't have to show that, this is your answer, but 45 to 50 is equivalent to 9 out of 10. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, so these ones you could have maybe solved in your head, but they can get harder where it's not obvious what the relationship is. So we're still always going to use cross products to solve them. Okay, it's going to be our go-to for the rest of the week. So solve each proportion using cross products and then algebra. So you've already got your proportion, cross, find where your variable is. My x is at the top here, so I'm going to start with my downward cross product, x times 2. So x times 2 you have to know to write as 2x. Don't forget the equal sign, it lines up, okay, equals here. And then you do the other one that didn't have x, so 7 times 10 is 70. And what you want to do is you want to solve for x, so you've created this one-step equation where now you just have to divide both sides by 2, and you get x equal to 35. Okay, so I want you to show 2 steps for each of these. I'll give you some time and then we'll take them up. Okay. Great, so as I walked around, I noticed tons of people. Their first step, they found the n was 4n equals 60. So that would be worth a mark. Okay? And then second step was divide both sides by 4 to get n by itself. And there would be your second mark. So a question like that would be out of 2. Okay? 1 to get your first line, 4n equals 60, and 1 to get the answer. Same with the next one. And don't forget the equals in the middle. That's so important, and I see people are not forgetting it, so that's great. So find your x and do that product. So x ends up on your left side where you like to have it most. So 24x is equal to 6 times 14, 84. Divide by 24. And you get 3.5, exactly, so that's fine. And you would have gotten 2 marks for that question as well. Okay, so 1 to show your cross product, or equal, okay, and 1 to show your answer. All right, so the next ones will be worth 3 marks because the first thing you have to do is turn it into a fraction. So remember, the first number goes on top, and the second one, even if it's a letter, goes on the bottom. Again, on the other side, first one goes on top, second one goes on the bottom. Order matters, order matters, order matters. Okay? So there's your first mark, changing it from a colon form to a fraction. Now you want to do your cross product. So you want to do 3 times x is 3x. 7 times 18 is 126. So there's your second mark. Okay. Then you created an easy equation to solve, so you're going to divide both sides by 3. And you get x equal to 42. And there's your third mark. Okay? So try the next one. 3 marks. You get all 3 marks back. Divide by 25. Okay, so I see this. There's your first mark. Okay? And some people aren't using the highlighter anymore. They're fine. That's great. 25n equals 8 times 15. 120, there's your second mark. Remember, the idea is what does n equals? A proportion is just another equation. So we're still basically solving equations. And then divide. And you get 4.8. There's your third mark. 4.8 equals 4.8. Okay, so don't forget your equal sign. Sometimes when you highlight, you lose sight of it. It should line up, okay? So just in the middle, just like in solving equations, you got an equal sign all the way down. Okay? For communication, remember it's an equation. It says this ratio is equal to this ratio. This fraction is equal to this fraction. All right, so here's an example of a problem that you could solve that we did this morning in lesson 15, and now we can do it using cross products easier. Okay? So a new television has a width to height ratio of 16 to 9. Okay? So if I were doing something off to the side here, I would be like W stands for width over H stands for height. And I know I want it to be a vertical fraction, so I would write on width 16 and on height 9. Okay? Then it says if the television is 60 centimeters tall. So if the television is 60 centimeters tall, how wide is it? So on this side, do they give me a width or a height? If the television is 60 centimeters tall, how wide is it? So they give me the 60 centimeters, but how do I know whether it's a width or a height? It's got to be one of the two. It doesn't specifically say, right? But where's my clue? 60 centimeters tall must mean it's the height. So on the height level on the bottom, I'm going to put 60. And then it asks me, how wide is it? So I could use a W or an X, doesn't matter. So this is kind of like my given. Once I've made this, now it becomes cross products and solve. So I've got So I just have to make sure widths are on the top and heights are on the bottom. That's how I set it up. Yep.
You need like a document between the width and height. Do you need anything that has space or just?
In this space?
No, the space is gonna be.
No. This is just kind of like organizing my thoughts, so you could just do, okay? Good question. All right, so find my x, cross multiply, so 9x equals 60 times 16. 960. Divide by 9. X is, did you get 106.6666? Okay, so if we round to one decimal place, then this 6 tells me to round that up to a 7. So it would be approximately 106.7. And then I need a statement. I have to answer the question. So I have to say, therefore, the TV, I'll use a short form, is 106.7 centimeters wide. Okay? Therefore, the television is 106.7 centimeters wide. Remember, I use this dot here. That means I rounded. Whenever I round, I put a dot there. So usually in the just solve the proportion, you'll get like an exact decimal, but in some of the words, probably you have to round. Okay, our last example. A Prius uses 4.4 liters of gas for every 100 kilometers. How far can a Prius travel on 20 liters of gas? Set up and solve a proportion to answer the question. So, what are we comparing here? We'll use underlining. Liters of gas and kilometers. Did everyone see that right in the first statement there? We're comparing liters of gas and kilometers. So I might write liters over kilometers and then separate that out. Now what do they tell me? What liters go with what kilometers? 4.4 liters goes with 100 kilometers. So I'm starting to make my proportion. Then I have my equal sign in the middle, and then they're going to give me either liters or kilometers for this side of my proportion. So I'm reading the question, how far can a Prius travel on 20 liters of gas? So they're giving me liters, which means they're giving me the top number. And I have to find how far a kilometer is. Okay? So again, order matters. If I wrote x over 20, I would get the wrong answer. Okay? So order matters. You have to, that's why writing the little liters over kilometers helps you to make sure the tops represent liters, the bottoms represent kilometers. Then once you've got that, that's the hardest part for a word problem because we know that solving the cross product is easier than a lot of the equations we learned to solve. Find our x and do that cross first. So 4.4x equals 20 times 100 is 2,000. And then I have to get x by itself, so I have to divide by 4.4. So I do 2,000 divided by 4.4. Again, I get a decimal. So I get 454.5454. So this time I'm looking at the 4, and it's telling me how to round that. So this 4 tells me to keep the 5 the same. So approximately with my dot, 454.5. But it's a word problem, so I need to answer the question they ask. How far can a Prius travel? So therefore, the Prius can travel 454.5, and if I'm not sure of the units, I've set up this nice little meters over kilometers. So X is on the bottom, so it must be a kilometer. Okay, so therefore the Prius can travel 454.5 kilometers. All right, awesome. All right, so I have some practice for you to do.